What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Beyond the Junkyard podcast. I am your host, Junkyard James. And if you are a regular attender of watching these Thursday live streams, you notice something is off today. There's no one to my right. There's no K Dog. There's no Cody Marinara. Watching or on the show today, and he had a family thing that he had to take care of, and so we're hoping the best for all of that. Mr. Marinara's wife got a little saucy in the kitchen, and so they are taking care of some of that. But I'm here. We got the same great damn show that we always put on every week for you guys and you gals who sit here and watch. So I want to thank you ahead of time for tuning in to the show. I want to give a big thank you to StubHub, to Dubby, and to WWE Shop for being our affiliate partners today. Let's just jump right in to what's going on. As you can tell in the description, we got a jam-packed show for you all today, breaking down some of the biggest news in WWE and AEW. If you have any questions that you want to ask at the end of the show, we typically listen to the chat, post them live. We'll read the chat here and we'll answer those questions at the end of the show. So be active. There's 4 buttons on the top of the screen. Like I have said before, there's that like button. Hit that thumbs up. Leave a comment. Be active in the chat. Share this with your wrestling friends. And subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you can always be aware when we post anything on the channel, that whether it be the Thursday live stream or on Saturdays, I post a casual community show for the real wrestling community. It's just kind of the Thursday live stream. Usually me and Cody Marinara kind of break down the in-ring work, the technical ins and out of the business, and then the Saturday show is just kind of like what is the community talking about at large, and kind of breaking down that stuff, and maybe not so much the stuff in the ring. We're gonna go straight into the mid-card meltdown piece. What I had for the mid-card meltdown, obviously, since Mr. Marinara is not here, we can't do that Guess the Wrestler game. We'll have to save it for next week. But let's jump right in to the opening monologue for my overall mid-card meltdown. And I think this is something that I've talked about on this channel before, but it is, I think, something that is very, very important for wrestling fans to understand. And so give me like 10 minutes of your time to open the show before we break in to some of the bigger stories that have gone on in the wrestling world. Let's get real for the next 10 minutes. I want to talk about something that's dragging down professional wrestling, and that is one word: tribalism. If you're deep in the wrestling world, you know what I'm talking about. It's that us versus them mentality that has turned fans into rival gangs, especially when it comes to WWE versus AEW. It's not just about picking a favorite show. It's treating your choice like it's the only one that matters, and trashing the other side like it's some supposed enemy. And let me get clear. Let me be clear with you for a minute. Tribalism, this kind of tribalism isn't just some sort of like petty bantering. It's toxic. And it's hurting the wrestling industry at a time when AEW is trying to spark a revolution that could lift everyone up. And so let's break down what tribalism is, what it is in the context of pro wrestling, why it's so destructive, and why we need to move past tribalism in order for wrestling to thrive. So what is tribalism? It's when the fans pick a team, AEW or WWE, and they make that their entire personality. You've seen this before. It's not enough just to love AEW's high-flying matches or deep storytelling, but you've got to hate WWE's polished or maybe sometimes over-polished production or call it corporate nonsense. On the flip side, it's WWE fans dismissing AEW as some form of glorified indie wrestling or saying it'll never be the big leagues. It's the endless arguments on X and other social media, the Reddit wars, the YouTube comment sections, where fans don't necessarily critique, but rather they attack. And see, it's not just the fans, though. The wrestlers, promoters, and even so-called wrestling journalists get caught up throwing shade to rally to their side. It's like wrestling has become the battlefield, and AEW, the scrappy underdog pushing for change, usually ends up getting caught in the crossfire. But let's rewind back a decade or so to understand where we've been, how we got here. See, for years, WWE's been the only big name in town, the only big league in town. See, after WCW folded in 2001, they had a monopoly, and fans had no real choice. You either watch wrestling, or you either watched WWE wrestling, or you didn't watch wrestling at all. And see, and then in 2019, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, burst onto the scene, backed by Tony Khan and built with stars like Kenny Omega, Adam Page, the Young Bucks, and Cody Rhodes. AEW wasn't just another promotion, it was a promise. And that promise was athletic, hard-hitting matches with creative freedom for wrestlers, less dates for wrestlers, and a focus on fans who wanted something different. It gave wrestlers a place to shine without being micromanaged, and it gave fans an alternative to WWE's predictable formula. But instead of celebrating this new energy, too many fans have turned this into a war. See, the WWE loyalist calls AEW a flash in the pan, and see, AEW fans then fire back, saying WWE was out of touch. And just like that, the wrestling community has split into separate tribes. And see, don't get me wrong, though, competition is the lifeblood of wrestling. See, back during the Monday Night Wars, the WWF and WCW pushed each other to create legends like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, the NWO. Fans loved it because they had options and the wrestlers had better opportunities. See, that's what AEW is doing now. They're pushing the industry forward with shows like Dynamite, pay-per-views like All In, cross-promotional events like we saw last night, Grand Slam Mexico, Forbidden Door, other stuff with New Japan. They're giving wrestlers like Swerve Strickland, Tony Storm, and Will Ospreay a platform to become mega stars. But tribalism is choking out this potential. Instead of fans enjoying both flavors of wrestling, too many act like it's a cage match where only one company can walk out alive. And that is where the damage starts. So let's talk about why tribalism now is so harmful to the business. See, first, it shuts down any real conversation. Wrestling fans are the best. They live for debating match psychology, cheering for underdog stories, or geeking out over perfectly executed moonsaults. But tribalism turns that passion into a contest of who's the more loyal fan. If you're an AEW fan, you can't say that the WWE's Bloodline storyline is anyway compelling without someone calling you a sellout. If you're a WWE fan and you admit AEW's Double or Nothing main event was a banger, you're, quote, betraying the brand. Fans stop talking about wrestling to defend their tribe like a cult. And see, that's not fandom, it's gatekeeping, and it's drowning out the joy of wrestling. See, secondly, tribalism hurts the wrestlers who put it all out there, risking life and limb. They are real people, real athletes, real storytellers, real artists who pour their hearts into every match. AEW has given many of them a chance to shine, from MJF's razor-sharp promos, Hangman Page's emotional story arcs. And when wrestlers move companies, think Jade Cargill going to WWE, or Swerve Strickland, Tony Storm coming to AEW. Tribal fans don't celebrate the hustle, they attack. AEW let her go. WWE stealing talent. I back up. I've said that before. I've seen Expos calling wrestlers traitors for chasing a paycheck or a new challenge. I think Mariah May just a few weeks ago. That's not supporting the industry. That's tearing down people who make it special. See, AEW built a roster that feels like a family, but tribalism has turned their hard work into ammunition for fan wars. And see, worst of all, tribalism shrinks wrestling's audience at a time when AEW is trying really hard to grow the audience. Wrestling isn't the cultural juggernaut it was in the 1990s. It's fighting for the eyeballs against stuff on Netflix, esports, social media. AEW's been a game changer here. See, bringing in new fans with its fresh approach and partnerships with promotions like New Japan and CMLL. But when a new fan checks out AEW Dynamite and they love it, and then they go online and they see WWE fans trashing it as minor league, what happens? Or on the other side, when someone enjoys Royal Rumble, but then gets hit with AEW fans calling it overproduced trash, they don't stick around. They see the toxicity. They see the gatekeeping. And then they just bounce. See, tribalism scares off new fans. And when the audience shrinks, it's harder for promotions like AEW to keep pushing the boundary and taking risk. See, I've got to call it like it is. Got to call it like I see it. The companies aren't helping in this light either. See, WWE's got the resources, the history, the global reach, but sometimes they lean into the "we're the only one that matter" tribe, dismissing AEW as some flash in the pan. That fuels the fan superiority complex. AEW, on the other hand, they're out here trying to change the game, but Tony Khan tweets about ratings or takes shots at WWE. It can rile up the fan base a bit too much. Both sides knows that a rivalry sells tickets, but they're playing a dangerous game. AEW's mission is to give fans and wrestlers more freedom. And it's important. And that mission is too important to get bogged down in some petty sniping. This industry needs both companies to succeed, not just one. So how do we fix it? Well, it starts with us, the fans. We need to remember why we fell in love with wrestling in the first place. For me, it's these big match moments. Think Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada in the Tokyo Dome, or the Young Bucks high-octane tag team matches, or Britt Baker's rise to stardom in AEW. Those remind me why this art form matters. You can love the grit of AEW and still enjoy the spectacle of WWE. You can critique booking decisions without torching the entire company as some sort of mess. And when new fans show up, don't grill them on which side they're on. Show them why wrestling as a whole is awesome, whether they like AEW All Out or WrestleMania. To the companies, keep doing what you're doing, especially AEW. Keep innovating, keep taking risks, keep putting wrestlers first. But dial back a little bit on the shade throwing. Work together to grow the industry. AEW has already shown it can collaborate with other promotions like New Japan and CMLL. Imagine what they could do if they did it with WWE. Could you imagine how the fans would lose their mind over some form of cross-promotional moment with WWE? And that would bring in new viewers for everyone. So in closing to this opening monologue, tribalism is cancer in wrestling. It's strangling the passion, it's hurting the performers, and it's pushing away new fans. AEW is leading a revolution. They're giving wrestlers a voice, they're giving the fans a choice, and they're giving the industry the kick in the pants that they need. But that revolution cannot thrive as we as the fans are busy fighting over which company is so-called better. So let's drop the tribal flags. Let's rally around what really matters most in the pro wrestling industry. And that's great wrestling. That's incredible stories. And that is a community that welcomes everyone. Because if we don't, we're not just hurting WWE or AEW, we're hurting the future of the wrestling industry that we love. And so together, I'm calling on us all to please work together to make wrestling elite again. That's my opening monologue. Let me know down in the chat what you guys think about that, about tribalism, about all of that. But we're going to transition right now into some of the bigger stories of the week. We're going to start with the stuff in the WWE. And so there was a report that came out, I believe, yesterday, Wednesday, June 18th, around 9 in the morning by Brian Sazi on Yahoo Finance, titled AEW CEO Tony Khan, the breakup of Warner Bros. Discovery won't affect our business. And so this is, I read this and I'm like, this is an AEW article. Great. Let's see what they're got to say. And then Tony Khan talks about how like he knows David Zaslav, he knows Gunnar Wiedenfels, they're splitting the network. It won't affect AEW. It won't affect their numbers. But then there's this piece talking about Endeavor in WWE. And so it says, in September 2023, Endeavor completed a $21 billion merger between WWE and the UFC, forming TKO Group. Netflix began exclusively streaming Raw on January as part of a $5 billion 10-year rights deal. And then the next sentence struck me because I haven't heard any rumors of what is about to be said, but it struck me. Speculation has surfaced that TKO Group may look to unload WWE. And so my hope was to have a really nice conversation with Mr. Cody here about this, about our thoughts on this. Is WWE this close to being dropped by TKO Group? Is TKO finally realizing that WWE is more of a liability than it is an asset for the company? Because I think they are. I think they're seeing that wrestling as a whole isn't as popular as WWE banked it out to be. I see that while WWE as a independent piece of the pie is profitable, overall the landscape of TKO is that they're not profitable. They're seeing that the fans are not receptive to the new direction of investor-centric approach to the wrestling game, and yet the fans are backing away. The fans are not willing to pay the large prices. I can't tell you how many times I've seen over the past couple weeks where fans have talked about WWE tickets being astronomically high, and they decided to go to AEW events in town instead of WWE events just because of the cost. And so I think TKO is seeing this, and they're saying, while WWE is still profitable, while WWE still has some form of worth, while there is a little bit of value in the name, we might be able to sell it and recoup some of the loss, recoup some of the price that we paid to get it in the first place. And so, obviously, this is the first I've heard of this. I haven't seen any other additional information. This is just speculation, but it's interesting to me that TKO Group is possibly considering unloading WWE from their company structure. Because I think I think back to when this deal happened. And again, we go back to the tribalism piece and the first monologue. All of the WWE drones, they blasted AEW over this. Like, haha, we got you. We're going to build this world empire and be really profitable and whatever else in between. And yet it seems like maybe not. Like, since this time, we've seen that SmackDown has lost the Fox deal and had to go to NBC, and then they've lost about 1 million fans in a year span, and so the numbers year over year do not look good for WWE. They don't look bad per se. They're still a profitable business, but they don't look good. Yeah, they're selling record-breaking gates, but at what cost? Like, how many more people, how many more shows are WWE going to drastically outprice their target market before the target market just stops showing up? Because right now you have some fans that'll be like, yeah, we'll show up to a SummerSlam, or yeah, we'll show up to a WrestleMania. But eventually the pricing is going to be so astronomical that instead of going to SummerSlam, WrestleMania, Survivor Series, and Money in the Bank, the big four, they have to choose one or the other, or over the other. And so instead of going to 4 big shows, they're only going to 1. And now the crowds are less. You know, I can't remember what show it was. Was it Money in the Bank this last pay-per-view that they had, where it seemed like the fans were, the crowd was almost 100%, about 50% empty. Like they quoted it as a sellout, but like the crowd was half there. Half the people didn't show up. People maybe were stuck in traffic. Who knows? It's just interesting to me, because I think everybody would have assumed if there was one company getting dropped in some way, shape, or form, it would have been AEW. And then it seems like it may be WWE getting dropped by TKO. And if that's the case, what happens with AAA? What happens with TNA? What happens with, like, what I could see happening is, if let's just say TKO drops WWE. I could see WWE coming to a place to where they're saying, we tried this expansion shit. We tried this idea of trying to reach a global audience, and it didn't work. And so now we're going to close each other up. And instead of trying to do partnerships with all these other companies, we're going to take the assets that we have, and we're either going to isolate ourselves and not entertain that sector, or we're going to try and buy up all these other companies. It's either one side of the spectrum. And I don't have proof on either side, so I can't speculate, but that's where it seems like it's going. If that's the case, where WWE is being dropped by TKO, where does WWE go? Like, obviously Netflix can't drop them because they have the TV rights deal, and NBC Universal is a good friend with them. They had the Peacock deal before the TKO merger. And so I don't think they lose TV, but where do they go? Because that's bad press. If you merge with another company to form a larger enterprise, and then that larger enterprise decides to sell off your piece, that doesn't look good for WWE. Next thing on the list, WWE has Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia here in the next couple of weeks. And so the question I want to pose to the people in the chat, to the people watching, is should the Saudi show, say that 3 times fast, should the Saudi show go on considering the tensions in the Middle East? My answer is no. I think this either needs to be postponed or it needs to be moved, because there are too many tensions, and there should never be a time when political or real life events should never jeopardize the safety of the pro wrestling. The event can wait until the tensions die down. The event can wait, or the event can be moved, or you can reschedule with the Saudis. to make this event happen in a different location or a different place or a different time to protect everyone that would be flying into Saudi Arabia. But there should be no reason in the world, when the tensions are as high as they are right now in that area and that geographical area, that you should run the show. The show is not worth, the money is not worth the talent, the safety of your talent. And so my answer is no. I think they should postpone that Saudi show or move it somewhere or whatever it may be. And so finally, on the WWE side of things, Liv Morgan is injured. She dislocated her shoulder on Monday night, and I've seen a lot of people talk about how Kairi is a non-safe wrestler. But I need you to put your glasses back on for a minute. I need you to take a look at what's going on in this Liv Morgan Kairi Sane match and realize Kairi Sane's not at fault here. Kairi Sane did nothing wrong. It was just an unfortunate event where she does a drop toe hold, Liv falls to the mat, she tries to land correctly, and she dislocated her shoulder. Now it sounds like her injury may require surgery, and so she's probably going to be out for a extended period of time, which leads me to ask this question. Liv is a current member of the women's tag team champions. Are those tag team champions cursed? Like, it seems like everybody that holds them gets injured or something happens to where the belts are meaningless until they get back, or they have to drop the belts, or whatever it may be. See, I was listening to I think it was the Slap and Meat Wrestling podcast from Tuesday, and the gist of they were talking about Liv Morgan, and I want to talk about Liv Morgan for a minute, because Liv Morgan is the workhorse. She has grinded her ass off for the past year or two, and so this was just a normal thing where a spot you land maybe just a little bit off, which happens, and you get injured. But Liv Morgan was set up to have a big run into I'm gonna call it All In Weekend, but for Evolution. She was supposed to have a match with Nikki Bella. The rumor that I believe I saw was that it was going to be for the tag belts, and it would have been Liv and Raquel versus the Bella Twins, and we were going to get this big return of Brie Bella, and yet now it seems like that may be off the table, that Liv is going to need surgery and is going to be table and sidelined for quite some time. But Liv Morgan's worked her ass off, so this isn't the fault of Liv Morgan. This isn't the fault of Kairi Sane. This is just an incidental happenstance. Speaking of Nikki Bella and Liv Morgan and all of that, to continue the story, I was listening to the Slap and Meat Wrestling podcast, and the question was asked, why is Liv Morgan feuding with Roxanne Perez, with that inner drama with the Judgment Day? She's now maybe having a feud with Io Sky. Now she's having a part-time feud with Nikki Bella. Like, why is she in three different storylines instead of just one? And to which my response has to be that storylines don't have to be singular. They don't have to, Liv Morgan doesn't need to just be in one story and then jump to the next story and then jump to the next story. This is what AEW is great at doing, is creating stories that involve multiple people, and each piece of the story can come to completion at completely different times. And so the obviously the short-term story with Liv Morgan would have been the Nikki Bella feud. And then maybe she jumps into the Roxanne Perez piece, and then they can complete that story. And then you can go out here, and Io Sky is the final chapter of the current storyline. See, wrestling stories don't have to be just like this individual straight line, and you got to go from start to finish on one story. You are allowed to have these side quest pieces, because wrestling should imitate reality. And then the reality is you don't have just one person that has an issue with you. Usually when you have an issue with someone, you have an issue with multiple people at the same time. You have multiple stresses in your life. You have multiple different things that are going on. You don't just have one problem that, Jay-Z says it. He has 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. And so Liv Morgan has 3 different problems. She has 3 different pieces that she has to solve. And so that's why up into the injury, she was in three different individual stories that can combine into one total package. And so my best wishes go out to Liv Morgan. I hate to see the injury. I don't think it's her fault. I don't think it's Kairi Sane's fault at any point in time. It's just a terrible happenstance. And that's what we got on the WWE news. If you're still tuned in, if you're still watching, leave a comment. Let me know. We're about to jump into AEW piece. And then afterwards, we'll jump into some questions from the Discord. If there are none, then we will just end the show after the AEW piece. Again, I want to take a moment here and just thank our partners, StubHub, WWE Shop, and Dubby for partnering with us as we're transitioning here to the final piece of the show. I want to let y'all know, I talked about community. We're building a community here. And that's called the Real Wrestling Community. And that Discord link will be dropped in the description box or the show notes if you're listening to this on the audio feed. And so I just want you all to join join the community. Let's talk wrestling. We have WWE fans, we have AEW fans, we have TNA fans, we have indie wrestling fans, and I want to build a community where we can legitimately end the tribalism and have those real discussions about like what I find fascinating about pro wrestling is you can have a booking decision and one person can see the booking decision one way and the other person can see a booking decision the other way. And that's what's so fun about pro wrestling, is that you can interpret it in many different ways and there's not always one correct answer. There's a multitude of subjective individual correct answers with pro wrestling. And so join the Discord. If we got some merch on the merch store, I got to update the merch store a little bit, put some fresh stuff up there. But for right now, you can go to beyondthejunkyard.com and shop the merch shop there. There's a discount code to help save you some money on that as well. On that shop, that's beyondthejunkyard.com. You can go to junkyardmediagroup.com and find all of our social media networks and meet the team and just scroll that website there. Let's jump into some AEW news to end the show. Last night, AEW Grand Slam Mexico took place, and there was a lot that happened, but I want to break down 4 different takeaways that I had of the show. One honorable mention is that Mystico is completely over in Mexico. I loved his entrance last night. He was wearing the light blue Sin Cara mask that he wore in WWE, ripped it off, showing a Mexican pride, red, white, and green mask. And I love Mystico. I sat there. I don't know what song they were singing. It's his CMLL entrance, and they sing along to it. And he's legitimately the Jey Uso of Mexico, of CMLL. And Arena Mexico was going bonkers for him last night, and I love seeing it. It actually made me tear up a little bit. So that's the honorable mention there. But take number 1 of of AEW Grand Slam Mexico is this is exactly the proper way. This is an example of how you properly do a partnership with another company. You see, people wanted to talk about this partnership with AAA and WWE. It's not a partnership because it can't be a partnership. It's not a partnership. It's the same damn company. It's just one company in the subsidiary of that company. It would be like if Coca-Cola went up against Sprite and you're calling it a partnership. Well, no, it's two different brands under the Coca-Cola brand of the catalog of everything. So TKO had both of their companies do a split pay-per-view. There's no partnership there. That's colonization. I'm gonna call it as it is. There is no tribalism here because I want WWE and I want AAA to succeed. But this is colonization. This is WWE saying AAA is weak. AAA is dying. They need help. They need money. And Conan can't keep his mouth shut to talk about the negative stuff that him and Tony Khan have for what I don't know the backstory of the drama between Conan and Tony Khan, but apparently Conan can't stand Tony Khan. And he can't keep his mouth shut about it. And so Tony Khan says, we're just done with AAA. We'll work with your competitors and CMLL. And so AAA is struggling. And so WWE, instead of saying, yeah, we'll just work with you, they said, we're just going to take all of your assets. We're going to complete a hostile takeover of AAA. And we'll let you keep a minority of the ownership, but we'll take majority ownership of it. We get to make the majority of the decisions. Conan can still work creative for AAA, but like everything's got to go through the correct channels. And that's not a partnership. That is colonization. Eventually, any part of colonization becomes assimilation. And so no longer will AAA have their brand. It won't be a different brand. Like it'll all be under the same banner. It'll either be WWE this or NXT this or whatever it may be, but AAA won't exist. The colors will start to change, the graphics will start to change, the presentation will start to change, because WWE isn't about collaboration. They're about colonization. They're not about like working together. They're all about assimilation. And so that again, I don't have the proof to back it up, but we've seen this story a million times. Just think about, like, remember when ECW jumped under the banner and everyone was so excited that ECW and WWE are working together, and then all of a sudden ECW disappears and it becomes WWECW. They had to assimilate. It wasn't as hardcore as it used to be. The hardcore champion basically became a predecessor to the 24/7 championship. Look at WCW. They take over them and they immediately, those who didn't want to assimilate to the style were fired. And I hear it all the time that, well, we're under new management. No, but the new management was hired by the old management. Nick Khan was picked out by Vince McMahon. Not Triple H didn't pick Nick Khan. Nick Khan was picked out by Vince McMahon. And so Vince McMahon may not be there anymore, but it's not new management. So the CMLL AEW partnership is the proper way to do a partnership, because the WWE AAA partnership isn't a partnership. Because for it to be a partnership, it would have to be two complete different entities. And technically right now, WWE and AAA are the same entity, just different brands. Again, to reiterate the analogy, it would be like if Coca-Cola went up against Minute Maid lemonade, but both are Coca-Cola brands. And so there's not a partnership. Oh, well, here's a lemonade flavored Coke. It didn't cost them any, there was no partnership there. There was no collaboration there. It's the same company. They just mixed two flavors together. And so the CMLL AAA relationship was perfect. We had the stage of CMLL. We had Adam Hangman Page coming out and doing a promo in Spanish. You had just again, like the Mystico coming out to a CMLL theme. You just had all of the bits and pieces. It made it feel like it was a CMLL show with AEW people. And so that was takeaway number one. Was I took away that this is how partnership should work. That it shouldn't be about assimilation. It shouldn't be about colonization. It should be about collaboration and working together so that both companies receive mutual benefit. The second takeaway that I had, and it's a question that I think people are going to ask, because I posted this in some of my Discord servers that I'm in that are wrestling themed. Mercedes MONE won the CMLL Women's Championship. That's her 6th belt. She is now 6th belt MONE. And so the question is it too much? Or is this just a buildup for the dramatic fall of the MONE train? I think it's the latter. I think it's just a setup. I think they're setting this up perfectly. Number one, why wouldn't CMLL? Why wouldn't Rev Pro? Why wouldn't that random Austrian indie scene want Mercedes MONE, a woman with like 10 million social media followers, or maybe even more than that, toting around her belt on weekly television, to see the New Japan strong women's champion on her, even though she lost it just recently, to see the Rev Pro women's champion, to see now the CMLL women's championship toted around on AEW television by who I think is the greatest women's pro wrestler of the entire history of women's pro wrestling. Why wouldn't they want that? But it's also going to set up the drastic, dramatic fall of the empire of Mercedes MONE. And they set it up perfectly. So paint the picture. Mina Shirakawa comes out. She distracts Mercedes MONE after she wins the belt, and Toni Storm shows up and starts to beat the ever-living shit out of her. And so now you have this idea. Mercedes MONE is undefeated in AEW, by the way. She hasn't lost an AEW match since she's joined AEW. And so obviously, if you use logic for a minute, you have this woman who has six title belts. Eventually, she has to lose. It would make perfect sense at AEW All In Texas for her to lose the Women's World Championship match against Toni Storm, and you let Toni Storm retain the belt for several reasons. That can be the starting point. That can be the spark that sets the fall of the MONE empire and starts it to slow burn. And so she loses that match. And then Mina Shirakawa challenges her to a TBS title match. And she loses the TBS title to Mina Shirakawa. And then MONE decides, I'm leaving AEW for a minute. I don't have any of their championships. I'm too busy. I don't need you anymore. I'm going to Mexico, and I'm going to Japan, and I'm going to England, and I'm going to defend all of these other championships that I have. And she loses every single one of them. And eventually Mercedes MONE is left with nothing. And it would be the perfect way to create new stars. And Rev Pro, you can make a new star out of one of their women's regulars. You can make a star in CMLL out of a La Catalina or Persephone. You can make a star in the European scene and have someone beat Mercedes MONE. That would put them instantly on higher ground. That would instantly make them mean more, because Mercedes MONE, again, like I said, is the greatest women's wrestler of all time. And so this isn't like her, saying that she never wants to lose or whatever some of these rumors and innuendo are. Mercedes MONE does not have the ability to decide if she wins or loses matches. Let's just keep it plain and simple. She doesn't. This has been refuted multiple times by AEW, by New Japan, by CMLL, by everyone she's worked with. She doesn't have a clause in any of her contracts to say I win when I say I win, and I lose when I say I could lose. It's just, who wouldn't want her as the champion right now? Who wouldn't want Mercedes MONE as their world champion? You get time on AEW TV weekly. Imagine the amount of people that look at that and say, oh, she's AAA champion now? Or a CMLL women's champion now? She's Rev Pro champion? She's New Japan Strong women's champion? She's whatever other champion she is? Oh, and she's in AEW? Oh, maybe I should tune into AEW and see what's going on. That's what it is. It's good marketing for Tony Khan, and it's good marketing for these other companies. Again, the price for perfection and partnerships is that there's a give and a take. And right now, the give is that Mercedes MONE is given all of these belts, with the take being at one point, she's going to drop the belt to someone who can now be the biggest star on your roster. So let's think far ahead, instead of looking at the now and thinking Mercedes MONE is just some egotistical woman who never wants to lose. Let's look far ahead to when she drops these belts and she makes stars in multiple different companies. So that's the piece. That's takeaway number 2 that I had from last night's show in Mexico. Takeaway number 3 is the AEW tag team belts need a new number 1 contender. And I think I found the perfect number 1 contender for AEW All In Texas to take on Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. And those that tag team is JETSPEED. That is Speedball Mike Bailey and the Jet Kevin Knight. They came to the defense of Mystico last night. And so maybe are they next in line for an AEW title shot? I love the team. I love Speedball. I love Kevin Knight. This would be a fun team that they kind of put together, and the chemistry's there. And this would be a fun match, and maybe it would test the allegiance of MJF a little bit. Not too much here. I don't know where the tag team scene is going, but I want to follow up. Is JETSPEED the next in line? Sicko, the 3-week Sicko summer is over, right? The 4-hour Fighter Fest was a banger. The 4-hour Summer Blockbuster was a banger. Grand Slam Mexico was a banger. Now you got 23 days to build towards All In. And I wonder, is JETSPEED next in line for the AEW tag team titles? And the final takeaway that I had of the show was that, where were all the women? Where were all the women? Because on a 2.5-hour show, you had one women's segment. There were 0 backstage segments. There were 0 promos outside of Hangman's Spanish only promo to start the show. And maybe a few other, after the match gloating or whatever. But it was all wrestling. It was basically a Mexican pay-per-view. It was a CMLL pay-per-view on AEW television last night. But where were the women? We had one women's match, Mercedes MONE versus Zeusis. No other women on the show. I don't know if Megan Bain just didn't want to, just didn't have anything for her, or Tekla, or any of the other women on the show. I know Harley requested time off, so she has her vacation. And so where were the women? And this has again becoming a concerning trend in AEW. The women's division is not being utilized, Tony Khan. Listen, in the Discord group, I was called a cult member because I defend a lot of what Tony Khan does. And I am and to an extent, an AEW. I like AEW more than I like WWE. I don't hate WWE. I think the way that they do business is not the way that I would do business, and I don't necessarily agree with their business practices, but I don't hate WWE. But I'm going to call a spade a spade. Tony Khan, where are the women? We had such a great period of time where the women's division seemed like it was at its all-time best. And all of a sudden now the women's division seems like it's the least priority in the pecking order of AEW. So Tony Khan, where are the women? I think we need more women. I think it's not there's no defending one match, one segment in a 2.5 hour show going to the women. And granted, Mercedes MONE and Zeusis tore the house down. It was one of the best segments of the night. That's the point. The women are some of the better segments of the show in AEW. So where are the women? Where's Britt Baker? I know she has some backstage shit going on, but why isn't she on TV? Why can't we get an idea of where she's at? Where's Chris Statlander? Where's Willow Nightingale? I know Hikaru Shida's stuck in Japan because of visa issues, but even if she was here, would she be on the show? Where's Nyla Rose? Where's Diamante? Where's Layla Gray? Where are the women? Where's Deonna Purrazzo? I get Deonna's in ROH. You could watch her tonight. But where are the women, Tony Khan? That can be where you're different than WWE. If you gave the women the respect and the time, and you created a women's tag team division that was actually good, and you created women's storytelling that was more than just, I like this guy and you used to like this guy and here's a love triangle story. Like if you put really good storytelling, like that's where you can gain your competitive edge, because women's wrestling in WWE is okay, but it's not great. And AEW has, in my opinion, if utilized properly, the greatest wrestling-centric women's roster ever created. But they're not on the show ever. Where are they at? Where are the women, Tony Khan? Where's Britt Baker? I'll name them again. Where's Willow? Where's Chris? Where's Jamie Hayter? Where's Nyla Rose? Where are they? Those were the 4 takeaways I took away from last night. Mercedes MONE is building a dominant faction, leading to an even more dramatic fall at some point in the future. JETSPEED seems primed to be the next AEW tag team contenders. Women's wrestling is lacking. But overall, Grand Slam Mexico was an example of how to properly partner with another promotion. And so I'm giving it 4.8 stars out of 5, because it wasn't a perfect show by any stretch of the imagination. But it was pretty damn close. Pretty damn close. But let me know what you think in the comments. Like I said, y'all, 4 buttons at the top right of the screen. I need you to hit that thumbs up button. I need you to comment. I need you to share. I need you to subscribe. We're on the way to 100 subscribers. We want to get there by the end of the year. So hit that subscribe button. Check that notification bell to get notified when we go live on Thursdays and when I post a Saturday episode. Stay tuned for this coming Saturday's Smash or Pass community solo Saturday episode. We got a really good Smash or Pass segment lined up for you, and a lot of conversation this week in the Baddies Discord channel that I will be discussing on Saturday, as well as some other light IWC banter. Check that out on Saturday. It'll be posted sometime Saturday afternoonish. And otherwise, we out. And my man can't be here tonight, so I'm gonna have to do it for him. Look, don't get too excited that you burn yourself when you're mixing the sauce. You don't want to stir the pot too much. But until next week, y'all, stay saucy. We'll see you next week. Beyond